so deeply appreciate that you made the choice to be here. And I hope that the next hour you'll have an opportunity to grow your soul a little bit, think about some things, and I'm so grateful that you've taken the time to be here to give yourself a little Torah. So with that, I'm going to ask you to put everything on your lap on the floor. I promise I won't steal it. If you have a cup of water, put it on the floor. If your arms are crossed, your legs are crossed, straighten them out. And this is the technical term, put your tushy way back in the seat so that you are sitting up straight. Feel free to turn off your phone. Take a deep breath in and close your eyes. If your hands are clasped, take a moment of a body check. Turn your hands facing upwards and take another deep breath in, keeping your eyes closed. Settling into the week, take another deep breath in and exhale. In this next breath, as you find your rhythm of breathing, I want you to picture your home. If you have multiple homes, pick one. And I want you to go into your very favorite room. Find your way into that space. Find a comfortable place to sit, to stand. Begin to settle into that room. Begin to look at all the colors. Feel the light or the darkness. Take that space in. Let all the comfort and security, everything that's good, come from that room. Let it permeate your soul. And stay there for a few minutes. Taking another glance around the room, internally, take a deep breath in and exhale. Taking another final deep breath in, exhale. And when you're ready, open your eyes. So tell me, what was your favorite room? Raise your hand, tell me your name. Sivi, nice to meet you. You said the kitchen, why? It's yours. That's simply it? And you were the one that uttered which house. So which house is it in? Oh, good. So in the new house. Oh! Like, seriously. So it's the old house. What made it the old house? What made the old house kitchen different than this one? It was yours. Nice. Tell me another room. Tell me your name.
Pam.
Hi, Pam.
Shabbat dinner.
Shabbat dinner, because?
That's just where I feel the most whole and the most supported and the whole, everything's together.
So nice. It's where family, community come together and really feel a sense of connection. Okay, tell me your name.
Matt, it was the living room. I'm in that house I grew up in, and I just remember lots of family events, hanging out.
So Matt said the living room, and because he just remembers a lot of family events, but your childhood living room.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? How many people went back to something?
Well, it happens to be the same living room.
Oh,
I'm in the same house.
That's impressive. Wow. How many years have you lived in that house?
There's a 30-year gap.
So we need to hear that story afterwards. We'll put that on pause for a second.
Yeah.
Anyone else? One more room. Go ahead and tell me your name.
Alan,
Alan.
the bathroom.
Love it. Tell me why the bathroom.
I'm alone.
I love that you said that. The bathroom is often a very favorite place of many people because it's the only place you're not disturbed. right? And you can sing and you can do whatever you want in there. So I'm glad you said that. In all the time that I've done this meditation with people, there's one room that no one ever says. And there's going to be some ringer in the room that's going to say to me, that's not a room, Rabbi, but I'm going to make a difference. Actually, I'm going to tell you it very much is. It's the hallways. No one ever says the hallway is my favorite room, Rabbi Hirsch. Because if you are really a decorator, then maybe your hallway has some pictures, some wallpaper, maybe a few other things. But most of the time, we just traverse it back and forth to go from room to room, and we barely notice it. Except we spend, anecdotally, about 2/3 of our time in the hallways. And I start with this metaphor because in life, there are many times that we are in rooms. We are in places that are comfortable, and we know exactly what to do. When we're in a kitchen, we cook and gossip. When we're in a bathroom, I'll let you one figure that one out. But in the hallway, we don't know what to do. And what I came to understand as a rabbi is that the hallway became a very complicated place for people to live in. So let me tell you about Arnold van Gennep. 1900s, anthropologist, studied what are called liminal moments, coming from the word limed, threshold. He studied what is it about these moments of transition that throw people into a state. For example, adolescence to adulthood, working to retired, college student to working, single to married, married to children, married to divorced. What was it about this that some people handled these transitions with no difficulty, and other people, it became very complicated? So what he decided to do is study, is it their genetics? Like, are some people just born more comfortable making transitions? Is it personality? Do some people have like a more easier personality? It's like, another transition, this is the way life goes. Is it the circumstance? Some circumstances are just harder to transition from. And he studied it, and he couldn't find a single reason why. Some people handled things with ease and couldn't name what was the cause. So as a rabbi, I was a synagogue rabbi, a pulpit rabbi at Sinai Temple. I came with David Wolpe many years ago, and it was an incredible experience. But when I was there in rabbinical school, I really believed, as they taught me, that people are going to come to you and ask you questions about kashrut. In 10 years, I got 2. But daily, I got questions about, Rabbi, I'm in a transition. I'm in a hallway, and I don't know what to do. And some of the very difficult ones, it made perfect sense, and we cried together. A lot of them were just medium. Like, I didn't get the promotion that I anticipated, or my kids left for college. Things that you anticipated, but were still hard. And then the most confusing to me were the ones that were joyful. My child got married, and I'm incredibly sad. Joyful, but sad. Because those transitions, we don't talk about being in the hallway. And what I found with most of my congregants is that it was very easy to get stuck in the hallway. And instead of feeling like they could move to the next room, instead of feeling that they could, we're getting a sign. Instead of feeling that they could move to the next room, what in fact they felt was immobilized and paralyzed. And not to take the metaphor too far, but they were literally sitting in a hallway, unable to go forward and unable to go back, stuck. The number one reason begins with the word F, and it's not that word. It's a different F word. You tell me. Fear. Number one reason. What were people afraid of? First of all, afraid of change, right? What if I go into the next room and it's worse than where I'm at? Nobody really says, what if it's going to be even better? And especially not, what if it will be different? Good. What else are they afraid of?
I don't think fear is up.
We'll get there in a second. So tell me, fear.
I'm just saying, I don't think fear is up something. I just think you have fear.
Beautiful.
And you don't know.
Right, so it's an unexplained fear. It's just the fear of fear, that ominous feeling that you don't even know how to name.
Yeah.
Lovely. Fear of what else?
Failing.
Good. Fear of failing. Whereas we are entirely afraid of failing, but we're entirely afraid sometimes of succeeding as well. Both of those fears paralyze us. Good, in the back.
Fear of the afterlife. You don't know what happens to us.
Well, to get to the next room, hopefully that's not the final room. But that being said, I do think it raises questions of mortality. Have I done enough with my life? If I go into the next room, does this meaningful enough? Does this make sense with my trajectory? So yes, I think there's a level of immortality. Go ahead.
Fear of forgetting the past.
Beautiful. Fear of forgetting what came before you, and somehow that will annihilate you, right? That will take away the essence of who you are. And if you somehow let it go, it will disappear and destroy a part of you. Good.
Or fear of being forgotten.
Beautiful. Same. Fear of being forgotten. What if I move forward and no one remembers me? What is my legacy? This guy.
Fear of this.
Beautiful. Fear of like, it never happened. Something, that room never happened. And now I'm here and it's like, maybe it was my imagination. Another one.
Fear of being outside your comfort zone.
Beautiful. That one is the one I usually hear first. Sherre, nice to see you. Fear of being outside of your comfort zone. It's like, it may not be great here, but at least I know what here is and I'm comfortable. It's good enough. It's fine. When you hear yourself say fine, no, it's not fine. Good. One last one. Fear of?
Fear of getting rid of the clutter in the other place.
Right. Fear of actually changing your direction and doing it differently. And the worst part, so fear was holding all these people back, but what also was holding people back was the society that we live in. We are a society that is very productive and utilitarian. You are supposed to be going somewhere, knowing where you're going, and knowing what you're doing. We don't like anything ambiguous. We don't like ambiguous gender. You should know how much we don't like ambiguity. Do you know how crustaceans were deemed not kosher? The rabbis couldn't decide if they were milk or they were meat, and so they said ambiguous. Thus, they can't be. Therefore, they must be not kosher. We're a society that says, if you don't know what you're doing, go find a guru and let them tell you. Don't trust yourself. Go find someone to tell you. They'll tell you what to do because we have deferred the responsibility lest we make, quote, a mistake. We can blame it on someone else. And then the worst is that we're a society of too many rooms. We are a society that has so many choices, and if you don't believe me, go to the market with this instruction. Buy toothpaste for me. You will be texting me for the next hour with Crest, with whitener, with tartar control, with gel, without gel. When you walk into a market and you need to pick out toothpaste, cereal, the amount of choices is overwhelming. And so it used to be that there was one room in front of you, now there are hundreds. When Robert Frost wrote the poem about the road less traveled, he said, and I took the road less traveled, there were only 2 roads. Now there are 200. There was a study done, and you can see I love neuroscience, in the Journal of Consumer Research. And what they did is they divided the room, 1/2, 1/2. And for this half, they gave them a menu of 20 desserts. And they said, you can order whatever one dessert you want. And people were tormented and they couldn't figure it out. They didn't know what to do. And this crowd, they got a menu, 2 desserts. And everybody picked and it took a couple seconds. So out came their desserts with all the choices. And out came their desserts with the 2. And which group do you think was more happy? Right, because what was this group saying? I should have gotten that one. Yours looks better. Oh my God, what was I thinking? Now I made a bad choice. Oh my God. But this group was happy with their luck. This sense of so many choices is taking us to a place of ultimate fear. I want to pause and tell you about my personal liminal moment. It happens to be tonight my father's yahrzeit, and I dedicate this learning in his memory. I'm so grateful to be in a place of learning Torah on this evening, so thank you for bringing me that gift. My father was a challenging guy. I would love to say he was that incredible father. I didn't have that one. And in fact, we had a very difficult childhood, and we had a lot of moments, and as he got older, it was more difficult. About 6 months after I was married, I was new in the rabbinate. We'd started Friday Night Live. I was busy. It was exciting. I got a call at 5:45 in the morning. Now, if your phone rings at 5:45 in the morning, likelihood, not good. So you have to pick it up, but you don't want to pick it up. And I picked it up, and there was a voice on the other end. Sherre? Yes. It sounded familiar, but it didn't sound totally familiar. It's your father. Is everything okay? No, nothing is okay. I have pancreatic cancer, and I'm going to die in 6 months. He was 57 years old. But here was the clincher. And I want you to take care of me. Why me? Call my brother. He likes you better. I like you less. Why haven't you called him? That's the first thing that went through my mind. And I thought, really? Because on the one hand, it would make sense. I'm a rabbi. I care for people that I barely know. I sit at their bedsides. I hold their hands. How could I not sit at my father's bedside and hold his hand? But there was a case to be made on the other side. Wow, this was a really difficult man who made my brother's life and my life very challenging. And at this stage of my life, of course, he did the best he can. But at that moment, there was a real strong case to be made. And to anybody from the outside, they would understand them both. And so I did what I thought was right. I won't hold you in suspense. I called my brother and said, get down to LA. You're going to do this with me. And in fact, we did. And I'd love to tell you that it was some sitcom movie-like story where we had this big rapprochement and there was forgiveness and everything worked out great. That's not how it went. It was hard. It was challenging. We had moments of sweetness. We had moments of bitterness. But when we laid him to rest, I had no regrets. And at that moment, that was my liminal moment. We're often stuck between a place where there are no wrongs. We don't live in that wrong and right. We live in a series of rights. And you just don't know. I want to tell you now about God's liminal moment. So what do we know from the Bible? We just started reading it a few weeks ago. God appears out of nowhere. He comes from tohu vavohu, total darkness. God comes from a hallway, appears, and God has to figure out which room to go in next. And if you know the Torah, you know that God was hesitant. And God was fearful because if I create all these things, are they going to follow me? How's this all going to go down? And so what happens? In the final seconds of the 6 days of creation, God does this crazy thing. He takes a small ruach, and I use he as a, please, there's 88 names for God in the Torah. There's only 500 words. So 1/5 of the words are devoted, essentially, to the name of God. So call God whatever you want. I'm using he to make it easy in conversation. So what does God do in that final moment? There's a small ruach, a small breath. And with that breath, God creates man. God literally, with the small breath, stepped into the next room. And here's what's so powerful about the story, is God gets to the next room, and what happens next? People are terrible. That room is the worst. And he destroys the whole thing, floods it out, and says, I'm starting again. So essentially, God goes to the next room, floods it out into a new hallway in order to make a new room. And only then does God say, I will not continue to go and throw away the human race. I will stick with what I have. It is then that God exemplifies faith. The faith that I teach, which is the faith to stay in the game regardless of if it turns out how you want it to turn out. People say that I'm an optimist and that I think I'm a person that's like, oh, everything turns out great. I actually am not an optimist. Optimism and faith are entirely different. Faith is that you stay in the game as hard as it is, and you go to the next room and you go to the next hallway, and sometimes the room is really hard. It's really hard, and you don't say, I'm so glad I'm in this room. It's a great test. I don't feel that way. Sometimes a room is just really hard, and you wait for the next hallway. But you stay in the game. When the Jews created compulsory education when nobody else had it, that was faith. When we do something that doesn't turn out the way we want, but we don't quit, that is what is faith. So I have a question for you. If we're supposed to practice faith, why are there so many hallways? What's the purpose of the hallway? Because if our life is really good in the rooms, or at least manageable in the rooms because we know what to do, why would our life be built on so many hallways? You tell me.
It's not even,
What's the value? Who said that? I couldn't see a nameless face. Good. Tell me.
The value of the hallway is the contemplation that helps you essentially decide.
So one thing for the hallway is the place to step out. It's a place to stay away and to sort of regroup. Shiva, morning, that's a hallway. If you've breathed, you know it's a place that you have to step out so that you can step back in, but you need that respite. Good, what else?
Growth.
I heard the yell, but I didn't see the hand.
Growth.
Growth, it's a place of growth, right? To decide not to go back, but to go forward takes growth. I'll say one thing about that. If you think you can go back, I challenge you to go back to your childhood home. Because when you go back to your childhood home, what's the very first thing you say?
Smaller.
It's so small. Nothing has changed except for you. The mere fact of going forward has fundamentally changed the place that you've been. So even as much as you might want to go back, you can't, because you are fundamentally changed in that experience because of it. Good, another reason for the hallway.
It's not a question, but
I'll come to questions after, but we go.
hallway and really journey and destination. It's not really the destination you're going to, it's the journey that you're always going to be on. So you're always.
So I'd actually say that the journey is the hallways and the rooms. I'll get to it in one moment. I just want to, but I would actually say it's not the hallway that's the journey and the room that's the destination. I would actually say that our life is made up of a series of hallways and a series of rooms. And if you live a long life, God willing, each of you will, I have sat with many people at the end of their lives, and I've held their hands. And what they've said to me is, now it all makes sense. They don't say to me, it was a great life, which sometimes they do, but they say, everyone has had hallways and rooms. But what they say to me is that now it makes sense. They understand how that hallway led to this room, and that room led to this hallway. And now they can look back and say, it was hard, and it was bumpy, and it was joyful, and it was all those things. But now I can look back and see it for what it was. Go ahead.
I think the rooms are the doing, and the hallways are the space. So, a world where we're always doing, and you said always accomplishing, the place where we're not doing anything, or the place where we're supposed to be quiet, or we're supposed to be in between, or we're supposed to take the time to think, is very often in the hallways.
So I love that. I think the hallways very much are in a life of doing. They're a place of being, because it's opposite to what we do. We're constantly doing, and the hallway is there to remind us to pause. I did this thing for a year, which is that I created what's called a weight box on my computer. You can do it anywhere you want, but it works nicely on the computer. Every single email, incendiary, non-incendiary, I waited to send it for 24 hours. I responded, I put it in the weight box on my computer, a little file, And then 24 hours later, I sent it. By the way, none of the emails that I wrote originally went out the way that I wrote them. Every single one was changed. I thought people would be really upset, like, you didn't respond to me in 3 minutes. I mean, this is email, for God's sakes. But the truth of it, very few comments for the whole year. But what it gave me, those 24 hours of being, an opportunity to reread it, and I can't tell you the amount of discord, disagreements, misunderstandings I avoided in that year. Just from the pause. Go ahead.
Regarding rooms and hallways,
Sure.
if you're very determined to go from one room to another and you have to cross the hallway to get to the next room, and despite your best effort, you can't get there because of external factors in the world, how do you maintain faith?
So let me answer that at the end when we have Q&A, because I think that's a very important question. But let me finish our thought, because I have a little bit of work for us to do and a little bit of questions, which will go right into that. So I'm going to conclude, and then we'll answer some questions, and I have a little bit of a Torah study that we get to do together, which is some of you in this room may be in a hallway right now in your life. And some of you may be in a room, and for those of you that are in a room, enjoy it. It's delightful, but I promise you, a hallway's coming. And for you that are in a hallway, I tell you, please have faith. Because what the hallway is meant to do, it's to not define you. The hallway is meant to teach you that who you are is how you respond. It's not to sit there and say, I have to be stuck in this hallway and this is my identity because I cannot move forward. How you respond in that moment is the moment of which you define yourself. And the story of your life is a story of all the times you crossed the threshold with courage, with faith, with difficulty, but you crossed it. That's the moment of self-definition. That's the moment you see who you are. It's not the room you were in, oh, I was this president of this, and I was the leader of that, and how you actually handled retirement, divorce, marriage, how that actually got played out in the most troubling of moments is what defines us. That's why you want to know what your life is about. It's a series of thresholds that you've crossed, and you've crossed them with courage. That's my prayer for each of you tonight, is that you don't look at your life as I'm waiting to get to a destination, I'm waiting, and I'm going to get there sometime, and I'm on this journey, and the journey is a test, and this is hard, but you look at it in its entirety. This is a moment to come to define who I am. And one day, God willing, you will be holding your grandchild's hand, and they'll ask you about your life. And you'll say, it was bumpy, and it was good, and you're one of the best parts of it. But I stayed in it because I had faith. Not that everything would turn out perfectly, but that it would turn out, and that I would be okay. That's my prayer for each of you. I wish you a long life. I wish you many rooms. I wish you many hallways. And I wish you walk through them with bravery, with courage, and with faith. So what I'm going to do is ask each of you, we're going to do some questions, but before we do questions, I have a fun little thing to do. If you don't mind taking, oh, I'm not allowed to get out of the floor, I'm out. Everybody take out a pen. Grab a pen from your purse. I have extras if you need it. I'm just a little nervous about leaving my little territory here. In there in that purse. Can I take one of these from you? I'll get another one.
Pens? Pens?
I want you to look what's in front of you. And I want you to answer this question. I promise you I will not make you share it. This is only for you. You're going to get yours back in a second. It's coming right back. Even if this is out of your comfort zone, cross this threshold with me. Take a moment and answer the first question. Am I in a hallway or am I in a room? Okay. Sure.
Because you really always have to be comfortable.
No. A room can be a place of landing, but it's not always comfortable.
The reason we were mentioned before, make sure that we're at home. We're not sure, maybe students.
When we go to questions and answer, I'll explain why. Shiva is not a place you can live in. You have to get up after a year. And a room is a place that you can stay for a much longer period of time. That's the short answer. I'll answer it longer in a second. Go on to the next question. What are my fears?
A phrase I ran across.
Hold on 1 second. I just want to let people write, and then I'll promise I'll give you ample time for questions. Okay, so now here's the brave and bold part. Everybody just give me a look up when you've answered the second question. You're going to turn to the person next to you, not the one you came with. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to introduce yourself. Tell them where you're from. Since you're all from LA, you might say, where in LA? 818-310, anything like that. And then, with a tremendous amount of courage, tell them, I promise that this room is sacred, and if it's not sacred and one of you go out there, I will find you. I will hunt you down. So, take that risk with me. So turn to the person you did not come with. That may mean that you have to turn back your back to someone. It may mean that you have, and take a few minutes to have a conversation. Yes. Whether you're all confused or not, just to, they don't look so confused, so I'll just tell you what I would say is, So give me a look up. Take about 1 more minute. So start wrapping up. So before we talk about anything, be honest with yourself. How many of you gave advice to the other person? You don't have to raise your hand. How many of you gave advice to the other person? Oh, that is not a very honest. Right. The instinct to be someone else's guru, to let them, to figure it out for them is so powerful and so habitual in our lives that I didn't instruct you otherwise. But often what happens, someone says, I'm in a hallway, and the first instinct is like, let me tell you I was there too. Let me tell you what I can do. Let me tell you. And I want to tell you the most important thing of tonight. You take nothing away. It's that you understand that when you try to fix another person, you're robbing them of the opportunity to fix themselves. It's also very, literally narcissistic to say, I know, because no one stands in each other's shoes, no matter how similar the situation might be. But the truth is, it's time for us to be our own guru, to have our own faith and our own trust, and not to sit there and wait for someone else to tell us. And the instinct to know, what should I do, what should I do, what should I do, is so powerful that we forgot how to trust ourselves. So I want you to look at the paper. There's a third question. If I was my best friend, what advice would I give to her? And write it for you. What is the best advice, because there was some confusion on the last question, what is the best advice I would give to my best friend in this situation, but you're giving it to you? it's much easier to clean other people's homes than it is to clean our home. So it's very easy to give advice. So think about Kimmy Finkelstein, your best friend, whatever her name is, and write down, oh, back in my box. This is feeling very strange. So write down what is the best advice you would give that person. Take a moment, write it down. Actually, Kimmy Finkelstein is not, or I'd say Stacy Katz. They happen to be Jewish friends, but just whoever your best friend is, whatever their name is, just use that one. That's not a best friend.
So half of these half man, half dog, best friend.
Did not know that. Thank you. And once you've written that, I want you to say, what small acts will I take today to be in that advice? Because if I say to you, oh, I know, I'm in a hallway and I'm going to exercise every day and I'm going to go to prayer and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, that's going to last for about 6 seconds. But if you do one thing on a set time, on a set schedule for this year, for example, I'm going to write in my journal 3 times a week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8:10 to 8:12. I promise you that you will start to live that advice. I did this as a test group, and I had 25 people every year take on 1 mitzvah. And they would say to me, we want to take on more, we want to take on more. And I'd say, no, just take on 1. 25 years later, my thinking is if they live to 120, living 120 mitzvot each day of each year of your life is a lot. So 25 years later, their children are rabbis, they have all kinds of Jewishness in their life, and these are people that had nothing because they did one thing at a time. So pick one thing that you will do to enact your advice. Because everything in the theoretical is great, but actually it's the action that matters. So take a moment and commit it to yourself. Write it down. Writing it down is always more important than just thinking it. Just one. Just one. And now turn to that person again and verbally say to them, this is the one act I will do to take myself out of this hallway, to put myself, to enjoy this room, to understand this room. This is the one act I will do. So turn to the person. I want to make sure everybody got it because the last time there was a little bit of confusion. Turn to the person that you just introduced yourself to and tell them the one act verbally that you will do.
What's your one act?
I did it live streaming. I didn't know that I thought it was taping that long. I love your time. Now, we just have a few minutes left and I want to leave questions. I need someone to be a little brave and a little bold and tell me the one act you're going to take. Someone feeling very brave, tell me your name again.
Harvey.
Hi, Harvey. What's the one act you're going to take?
I've been taking it and it's have to continue. I'm sort of in a transition hallway. But I have diabetes, for example, I'm fighting it. Fighting it means from diabetes.
But tell me one thing. I don't want the whole story. I want one thing that you're going to do.
Fight the diabetes and get rid of it.
Okay. Well, beautiful. Go ahead.
Toss aggressively.
Toss aggressively?
Toss aggressively.
That means things out of the house.
Things out of
Okay,
the
so be more specific. One Sunday a month, the first Sunday of the month, I'm going to go and I'm going to toss things out of the house for 2 hours.
Yeah, well, that's what I wrote down.
Perfect. Good. Give me another one. Go ahead.
My wife has to close her ears, so I'm not accountable for saying that.
Well, there's a method to the madness of the writing and the listening, if you've noticed.
Life has a way of being very busy and lots of demands. So I'm going to try and find 5 minutes every day to sit outside by the pool without my wife, without my children, without anybody, but just to sit there for 5 minutes to make space for 5 minutes where I'm controlling or not controlling 5 minutes of space.
So the science, the neuroscience, first of all, thank you. The neuroscience is it's 3 minutes to transform the synapses in your brain. 3 minutes. I'm very involved in UCLA. It takes 3 minutes. So 3 minutes, if you can spare, what is that? 180 seconds? Did I do the math correctly? If you can spare 180 seconds, you can actually change the chemistry in your brain. So if you are sitting at the doctor's office waiting, put your Apple Watch on or your phone.
Do not put your watch on. Actually, the neuro studies say that's absolutely what not to do.
Oh, that's funny because I actually just spent a whole retreat on it.
Because they did a test that they did a test of kids who took exams. And in one case, you leave the phone on and you turn it upside down. In another case, it's there. And in the third case, the device is outside the room.
And the kids.
And it holds an electronic device holds your attention regardless of whether you're interacting.
So I'm 100%, I know that study, 100% right. The reason I say take the phone is because sometimes the ambiguity of not knowing when it's going to end. If I say to you, get on this treadmill for 1 minute and run your heart out, you will. If I say, get on this treadmill and run, after 30 seconds, you'll say, I'm done, I can't run anymore. So sometimes a good transition point is to have the phone. But you're absolutely right, that study was done, and I know that study very well. So don't take your phone if you're advanced. Take your phone if you're less advanced. Good, give me one other act. Did you have your hands up? It looked like it. No. Someone, be brave. If not for yourself, for the other people in the room. Go ahead, Sherre.
I want to finish the website, but it's been created.
Beautiful. Good. So give yourself 2 hours once a week to be a part of that website. Good. Someone else had their hand up.
I'm going to practice yoga between 5 and 60 minutes a day.
Love. Love. There's all kinds of apps on it, and you can just turn it on.
I'm going to write one thing once a week that I'm grateful for.
Beautiful. And for those of you that have a grateful journal or gratitude journal, you just keep it by your bed. If your spouse or your partner, if you hand it back and forth, I can't tell you how much it will heal you in the midst of an argument. If you're in the middle of an argument, grab the gratitude journal and read a page. Works like a charm. Good. One more.
I want to think why we get to.
You want to think? I lost you for a
I want
second.
to spend a minute or 5 minutes thinking why I'm in that space.
Love that. So you're gonna take a minute of your life to intellectually evaluate how you got there. Perfect. To experience why you're in that space.
Why I'm in that space.
Beautiful. Okay, let's take one more.
Every week to talk to a goal buddy about what I'm doing that week and be accountable to that person.
Beautiful. So she said that every week, talk to a goal buddy. I believe that everybody should have their own personal executive directors, their own personal board. That is 3 people that actually can call you on you. So you can say to them in a very unveiled way, an unmasked way, who you are, and they can let you know how you actually are perceived in the world. Everybody should have it. So that 3 is the ideal number, but if you have more, it's even better. Start with 1 if you don't have an executive director. I want to close because my prayer for you and my hope for each of you is that you take one action, just one. That if you leave here and you say, you know what, I'm so glad I went to Liminal and I can't remember anything, but my philosophy as a rabbi and as a teacher is that the smartest person in the room is probably the person sitting next to you. And they're the one that you needed to learn from tonight. And I could give a great talk, and you guys could say, oh, that was a great talk, da, da, da. But when I hear people say, oh, Rabbi Hirsch gave a great talk, I cringe. But when I hear people say, 3 months from now, you know, Rabbi Hirsch, I heard you speak a while ago, and I started this change in my behavior, this change in my thinking, this action that I took, and I'm doing it. That's when I think I'm really carrying the message. So I pray that you all take one act, that it transforms you both from the outside in, and that it helps you get one step closer to the God as you understand Him. I wish you all wellness, and I will open it up for questions. And I didn't realize that it was live, so for all the people on live, I'm sorry I stepped out of the box. Do we have a couple questions? There was a few along the way.
I had asked you a question earlier about being stuck in a room and wanting to go across the hallway to the next room. And despite your best efforts, if you're not able to get there, how do you maintain faith?
So it's very easy to despair when you are in a place where you've been stuck in a hallway for a long time. And then what you've been doing obviously is not working. So it's helpful in those situations to have outside help, step in and say, you need to revisit what you're doing. So I'll give you an example. Someone's looking for a job. They can't find a job, and they have a list of all the things they want. They go outside, they can't find it, they go outside, they ask someone else, and that person says, what are you willing to give up? The salary, the prestige, the time off, the time working, and you say, I'm not willing to give up any of them. But then that person says, I'm going to ask you to give up all 4 of them, or 3 of them. It very much helps if you're stuck in a hallway. That's why there's clergy, that's why there's therapists, that's why the Talmud says, Rapo Yirape, that the doctor is there to heal, and it's repeated to let you know that that's why people become professionals. So use them. Good.
As you said before, the room, do you stay there forever or do you move? So I thought early on you said you do move. So I'm thinking that there's value while you're in that room, and therefore somewhat honestly reflect about the challenge of being there.
So you're in many rooms in your life.
I respectfully disagree about the Sherre, because when you do come to that room, it's meaning to be in that room, and I don't think it's just a place.
Oh, I think I misspoke. I said that a shiva is a hallway.
Yes, so that's why I said so.
Oh, you believe that it's a room?
I believe it's a room.
Got it.
Because you, to your definition of rooms aren't always the final place, and there's value in what you're doing in that room.
So I would say, how you want to label it is up to you. That being said, a room is a place that you know what to do and you know how to do it. I would say that Shiva, being in grieving, is a place of disorientation. It's a place of fracture where you don't know what you're supposed to do, and it's very disarming, disorienting, and that's a hallway. A room can be uncomfortable, but you know what to do in a room. And the reason I say that grief is a hallway is because in Jewish tradition, we're mandated to get up, right? We are, after a year, we actually, after Shiva, after 7 days, we get up and we walk around the block 7 times. We physically manifest that we cannot stay in that place of sitting. Like that's the actual thing. And then a year, actually, we get up and we mark the yard site, but it's literally 11 months we finish saying cottage because we're not supposed to live in that place because it's too disorienting and too disruptive. So that's the clarification. So forgive me for not making that.
And always have value, right?
Always have a lot of value. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think if you asked if you're in a hallway in a room, I was like, my response was I'm in both.
Good.
And so I think that like there are clear hallways. Like when my father committed suicide, that was a clear hallway, right? You know, now when I say like these 5 or 6 things, that room is very contained and very comfortable, but there is this portion of discomfort or this portion where I feel like I need to be in transition. And I think the biggest thing that I have a problem letting go is that it's okay maybe not to pursue that one that I feel I need to move all the time. It's okay just to enjoy the rooms. And I think we live in a society where we're always driving to be better or to that next space. And maybe you don't need to have every part of your life.
So I love what you said, and I've often talked about it in different times that I share. The book I wrote about this is in some areas of your life, you're in a room, in some areas you're in a hallway. And I think if we were in a position that we were in hallways in every other areas of our life, we would implode. So I think there's a balance, and sometimes we have to set aside this hallway so we can just be in this room and enjoy it. Not to take the metaphor so far, but it's not all equal. Sometimes in our professional life, we're very much in a room, and in our personal life, we're very much in a hallway. And learning how to live in a non-binary world, I think is also provides the meaning.
Across a phrase that kind of a comment on our society. It says the concept of progress is important to shield us from the terrors of the future.
One last question, we'll end on that. Go ahead.
You said 180 seconds is all you need to change your synapses. 180 seconds of what?
Of what they call meditation, reflection, quiet time, to actually, to begin to let your mind push out whatever's distracting it. But it doesn't have to be perfect meditation. That's the clincher. It doesn't have to be that you're 180 seconds in bliss. It's just 180 seconds of actually actively trying to move the distractions and be focused in meditation. Forgive me for not. Okay, one final question in the back.
The criminals, they are carried, and we have a very valid and others. Well, no, I can discern the thing for even 3 minutes, you're in something.
So I would just say, first of all, thank you for your bravery in saying that, because many people suffer with ADHD, and 3 minutes is a goal. Start with 5 seconds. 5 is good. I would say anything more than 2. It's great, right? Step by step. Thank you all very much.